Should you start a short-term rental in 2024? I'm Susie, I'm American, and I've been living in France for over 15 years. My husband and I converted our garage into a short-term rental during COVID, and I have some thoughts on this topic. In the news and online, we're hearing all about the Airbnb bust. We're hearing horror stories from guests and hosts. We're hearing about high interest rates. Here in France, we're hearing uncertainty and rumors that the government is going to make changes to the LMNP status, which until this point has made short-term rentals particularly advantageous for us. And yet, here I am on this channel telling you how great it's been for me. I think my message is meant for someone like me 5 years ago. So here we were, living in this cute house downtown in a touristy city with an unloved, unused garage in our back courtyard. It was valuable real estate that was just sitting there, empty. In the spirit of efficiently using existing resources, I love that our garage has become a very useful, productive space. So if you live in a house that has empty space, you can take this space and you can turn it into a short-term rental. Maybe you have a spare bedroom that you can rent out occasionally. Bonus points if your spare bedroom has its own bathroom, or if you can dedicate a bathroom just for guest use. This way you don't have to share a bathroom with the guests. I know as travelers, we have stayed with people like this in the past. We saved money ourselves. The people that we stayed with earned a little extra money, and it was really an authentic experience. We got to have breakfast with the people we were staying with. They were really nice. They even lent us their transportation cards, which was a wonderful bonus as well. Maybe you're someone who travels often, and then you can rent out your entire space when you're gone. In France, some people will rent out their yards to people who are traveling in RVs or who just want to pitch a tent for the night, but I don't know if that's done in other countries as well. But given the current climate of some cities cracking down on short-term rentals and high interest rates, I just wouldn't want someone making a risky bet on buying a property and then turning it into a short-term rental. If you are buying something or if you are making a big investment, you just need to make sure that you have a backup plan in case there are some restrictions on short-term rentals in the future. I haven't heard anything about Dijon, the city where we live, cracking down on short-term rentals. And even if they did, I don't necessarily think that we would be a target. But if they did crack down, I think that we could very easily convert our short-term rental into a medium or long-term furnished rental. And since our short-term rental is on our property, it's not like we are at the whim of a condo association that might one day just change its rules and no longer allow short-term rentals. So we're protected in that way as well. That's also something that you need to think about. Condo associations, homeowners associations, etc., which can also impose certain rules and regulations on short-term rentals too. But I also want to tell you that it's not necessarily going to consume a lot of your time. I was worried that in addition to our jobs and our families, having this short-term rental on our property, it would feel like I was constantly working, that I could never really relax. But honestly, that's really not the case. Actually, we usually spend a few minutes chatting with guests when they arrive once or twice a week, and the rest of the time that people are here, they're pretty much on their own. Guests have shown up at the door of our house only very rarely, and usually it's for something very simple and easy to solve. For most guest questions, they usually just send a little message by the Airbnb platform, so I can respond from anywhere, really. I was also worried about having to feel like I always had to be connected so that I could respond quickly to guest questions and guest inquiries. And I'm not someone who is always on my phone necessarily, and when I'm at work, I can't constantly be checking my phone. But the way that my husband and I have worked it out is basically that whenever we see that a message has arrived from a guest, the first person to see it will just quickly respond. And generally, these questions don't necessarily take a long time either. All told, I would say that we spend about 20 minutes per week communicating with guests who are in the process of reserving, or guests who are staying with us at the time. Sharing some of your space with guests can actually be pleasant as well. I'm not talking about sharing a bathroom with them necessarily. The way we have it set up is we often cross paths with our guests outside and just have a chat once in a while. We sort of treat them as our temporary neighbors. We respect their space and they respect ours, and we haven't had any problems. Also, you are in charge of your calendar. So if there are dates that you need to block, you are absolutely free to do so. I know some people, for example, will block their calendar the day after a guest checks out so that they have more time to clean. And that's something that we have done when we traveled, for example, because we trained my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law how to clean our short-term rental when we're gone so that we're still able to go on vacation. But we don't want to force them to do the cleaning in a short period of time between a checkout and a check-in the same day. So we block a day on the calendar when there is a checkout when we're not here. But there are other times that you can block the calendar as well. For example, we block it when we have friends or family coming to stay with us because we let our friends and our family use our short-term rental. It acts as a kind of fancy guest house for us. And so we're free to do that. We're in charge of the calendar. Speaking of cleaning, I think some people actually feel bad for my husband and me that we do our cleaning ourselves, but they shouldn't, because for us, it's kind of fun. We have our routine down pat. We put on a playlist. We go out there, we get our job done. And it's actually a very satisfying feeling. Granted, it's a small space, but the cleaning usually takes us between an hour and an hour and a half. With time and with experience, we've seen that we usually have one reservation during the week and then usually a second reservation on the weekend, which means that we often have to do a turnaround on Friday afternoons. Our guests check out at 11 and then the next guest will check in at 3 p.m. So we have 4 hours to do it, but we usually just get the cleaning done at lunchtime on Fridays. And then when the weekend guest leaves, usually on Sunday, it usually means that we have until Monday, until the next day when the next guest is arriving, so we have more time on Sundays to do the cleaning. And there have been Fridays when we haven't been able to do the cleaning for work-related reasons, and luckily we have a family that we can call to help us out if that ever happens. Now, these are the systems that we have just developed naturally over time that have emerged with experience, and we definitely didn't have all of these systems in place when we first started. Granted, we only have one short-term rental, and again, I think it's very reasonable just to start out with one short-term rental just to see if you like it. There's a lot of information on the internet of influencers who are sort of trying to figure out a scalable business plan to have multiple short-term rentals, and that's not the way we approach it whatsoever. We have our one short-term rental, it's behind our house, we manage it ourselves, and it has been a great source of complementary income for us, and also it's been quite fun. And I don't think that we imagine ourselves scaling up in any means, but just starting out with one in any case gives you a chance to see if you like it, and if you do, and if you can figure out a way to scale up your business, then that's always a possibility as well. But I think starting small is a good way to go. We know that with just one short-term rental, we can provide excellent service to our guests. We do have other rental properties that we manage, but they're long-term rentals, and so they don't require nearly as much continued effort. Who knows, one day we might decide to stop renting out our converted garage as a short-term rental, in which case we could convert it to a medium or a long-term rental or even house a family member. There are so many possibilities. But in the meantime, we're happy to continue renting it out on Airbnb as a short-term rental because it's just so profitable and it has been a really pleasant experience for us. I mean, every person who has been hosting short-term rental for a long period of time has some guest horror stories. It's inevitable, but the vast majority of our guests have been really wonderful, lovely, respectable people as well. So I think if the circumstances are just right for you, then you should go for it too. So I'm going to put a link below to our Airbnb listing as well. And there's also a link for those of you who might be interested in becoming Airbnb hosts. If you use this link, both you and I would have access to a bonus, and I would be happy to give you some feedback as you're setting up your listing as well. Next, check out these videos where we describe how we converted our garage and how we've managed to get over 100 5-star reviews on Airbnb. Leave any questions that you have in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and a bientôt!